Okay, so I want to start this video off by saying that this situation could last for a much longer period of time than you might be currently thinking about. If we have a look at the Spanish flu and we look from the start of the outbreak to when it was over, everything together took roughly a year. And at that time, people didn't know how to stop this. Right now, we can take drastic measures to slow this down a lot and potentially maybe still stop this. Who knows? However, we should not ignore the fact that this might take a year or longer. So right now, the best assumption is to probably say it's taking somewhere between 6 to 18 months until everything goes back to normal, right? And when I say 6 to 18 months, this also means the situation around the world in different countries can be completely different. Since China was the first country to have the outbreak, and it seems like they're probably going to take drastic measures to make sure it stays that way. So maybe China is going to be fine all the way along, and just other countries are struggling with it. So instead of thinking of this overall, we have to think of it on a country basis. And if you think about your supply chain, it comes down to where do you sell, where do you source? Let's just start off with the most common case, which is sourcing in China. And I think that's probably 95% of people watching. So from what we have heard from factories and also from Amazon sellers, it seems like that factories opened back up in China. And yes, they're trying to process all the backlog that they have, and they're not working at 100% productivity. But nevertheless, factories are open. Now, if you make any inquiries about making products right now or ordering new inventory, trust me, the Chinese will say yes. But always be sure to question and to get updates maybe from Facebook groups and see if those factories can actually deliver. Because they could be promising you the world to get your down payment, but then they take forever to actually deliver, or the situation changes and they can't keep their promise. So I want you to understand that there is an inherent risk that the situation will change from the time you order to the time you're supposed to get your product. So if you order today and you make a down payment of 30%, consider that maybe the factories get closed again, some situation changes somehow, or they just can't produce it as quickly. And your 30% down payment is stuck with them because you can't sell that inventory unless you got it. They might even finish the product and you pay them 100%, but then you can't get the product out of the country. And first of all, what a lot of people probably don't know is that a lot of the packages that are sent via air freight are actually sent via passenger planes and not cargo planes. And a lot of countries have banned air travel with China. So you could face problems importing products via air freight at the moment. This really depends what country you're ordering from, I would say. However, I know that lead times seem to be longer, but at the moment it seems like packages are being delivered. Again, the best way to check this is probably to be in Facebook groups where there's actual sellers who are ordering products and who can tell you about their most recent experiences. And don't listen to people that ordered a month ago or 2 months ago, because the only thing that matters is something very, very recent. So I guess there's two scenarios right now. Either you still have enough product and you didn't really need to order up to this point, but it's going to become a question at some point in the near future if you have to order again. Or you're already out of stock, you're trying to make something in China, or you're already trying to make something maybe in another country. And we'll get to that in a second. If you still have inventory for multiple months, that is great. But you should start looking right now where you can get your next inventory. And you should be aware that it's not 100% certain that things go back to normal within a few months. And so you got to come up with a backup plan and maybe already start executing that backup plan, because it might take you much longer than your regular plan. If you've just put in an order in China, or you're considering to order from China right now because it seems like, yes, packages are arriving, so maybe let me order quickly before anything changes again, I just want you to consider that there's an inherent risk with ordering at the moment, just because your inventory could get stuck at any point, and this means your cash is stuck. And it's always good to then have a backup plan and maybe not take all of the cash you have, but maybe just take part of the cash to make sure that, let's say your inventory gets stuck, you could still order from a different place, from a different country, find a different solution to, again, have inventory before you run out of stock. Now, I mentioned multiple times, and it's probably something that you've been considering a lot if you have an active business. Should I move my production out of China into another country? And I've read a lot about this in Facebook groups the past weeks, and I've heard a lot of sellers talk about what they did. And I know that sellers started shifting their production into other countries. And while this is a great first step, and if you did that and by now you have production up and running in a different country, you're very likely to get the next order that you made in time into the country where you're selling. However, the way things are developing right now, consider that the new country you're sourcing from could be the next country of the outbreak. So if you shifted your production already and you can receive inventory at the moment, you might want to consider buying extra inventory so you don't run out of stock, even if the country you shifted to has the next outbreak. If you're thinking about shifting your production to another country right now, I also want you, in this case, to consider the inherent risk. If you shift your production, it means you're now reliant on that country and anything that happens within that country and the supply chain to this country that you're selling in. At this point, it's really hard to say which country has the next outbreak, and you can also see that the outbreak happens rather quickly within a matter of days to weeks until the country is potentially shut down. So if your production time exceeds multiple weeks, it's obviously more risky than if you have a low production time of a few days. This could also mean that you could consider splitting up your production into multiple phases and then shipping parts of the production already as they are done. Maybe this is more expensive, but it definitely reduces the risk that all of your inventory gets stuck in a place. In general, it would be a good approach to order smaller lots and then just order multiple times. So break your order down into multiple parts and you minimize your risk because you're only giving money to the factory step by step. And if any of your inventory gets stuck anywhere, you only have a small part of your cash tied up in that inventory. All of these steps potentially increase the cost of your product, and you should recalculate your profit margin and reconsider if the price that you currently charge for your product still makes sense, or if you need to maybe temporarily increase your price. Now, a very interesting option for sourcing is also to source in the country that you're selling in. First of all, this could reduce your lead times, allowing you to buy less inventory and be less at risk of tying up capital. And if your product is being delivered on a truck instead of an airplane going between countries, it is far more likely that your product is going to arrive before the situation gets too bad. However, do keep in mind that the prices for producing your product locally might be more than double what you're paying in China. So if you're considering this step, again, consider increasing your prices and recalculate how much money you're going to be making on this. If you're currently unsure if you're able to move product from one place to another, a good idea is also to talk to a freight forwarder or a shipping company because they will have the latest up-to-date info if shipping from one country to another one is still possible.